Yeah, I had to have to drag you into a room. Let me drag you into a room. Join back. I have to drag you into my secret room so that we don't get other people randomly joining. Yeah, I saw that. You left. Join back, General. What do you want? Oh, my headphones are on. Hold on. Hello?
It's just some Wi-Fi issues. It's really cold and it's freezing where I'm at, so I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. I'm using data instead.
Okay.
I got it to work. So you're a Twitch streamer, yeah? I've been on Twitch for a good bit, but I'm relatively new to Discord.
Okay.
So you're Penguin TV.
Well, I think my name in Twitch is different now. It's just Matt, but
Oh, so you used to be Penguin TV, now you're Matt Loney.
yeah, because I didn't like people calling me by my random like handle. I was getting annoyed. I was like, fuck it, I'm too new to like. I can change my name to whatever I want, so I'm just like, I'll just make it my name.
I see. Is Matt Loney your real name? You don't have to know.
Yeah, that's my name.
Okay. So where do you live? You don't have to tell me if you don't want.
I live in Ontario.
Oh, I thought I heard you were talking about COVID, but you were talking about Sweden, so I thought you might have been like Swedish or something.
No, I was having a talk with somebody else about Sweden not
I mean,
locking down.
I'm American. You sound kind of American.
Okay, but I'm from Ontario. There's not a huge I don't know. I don't have like the stereotypical Canadian accent because that's usually from out west. Ontario has a pretty similar accents to
Well,
Americans.
yeah. Does Ontario have a French-speaking population?
Yeah, I speak French.
Yeah, so if Ontario has a French-speaking population, well, I'm from New Orleans, and we have a bit of a French-speaking population here. We're very Catholic, and we're like basically the only place in the country with like a huge French presence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there might be like overlap in terms of French-speaking populations. Although I'm Greek.
Okay. Uh,
So what are you talking about on the stream? I heard you're in the politics section, so I decided to call in.
I was talking about a bunch of stuff. So I had a conversation with a guy from Twitter earlier about like vaccine mandates. I guess broadly, it went to a bunch of different
Yeah,
topics, but
I'm libertarian on this kind of stuff, so I don't really believe you should mandate anything from medical stuff. At least not the government. Same
uh,
with drugs or anything like that. I think some people like drugs, and some people are going to take drugs. Let them take drugs. Some people are going to take vaccines. Some take vaccines. Some people aren't. So, I just live and let live.
I mean, okay, we can have a discussion of that if you want. I mean, I was kind of just explaining what I was talking about, but yeah, we can discuss that if you want.
I mean, listen, I know. So I just got home. My buddy had a bar mitzvah, so just kind of tired. He turned his birthday. So but for Jewish people, he's in
Yeah, I
high
know what a
school.
bar
So
mitzvah is. Don't worry.
yeah, so just kind of tired. His family was pretty nice. And my parents were sick, so I just had to go with my friend's family. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I'm just kind of tired because I had to go into a synagogue or whatever, the Jewish people church, um, synagogue. But yeah, so um, no, I'm off for the day. It's the weekend. I don't have school or anything, so I'm all good. I'm free. I don't have any birthdays or anything like that planned for tomorrow, so I'm free for the rest of the day and for tomorrow. So, whatever. If you're streaming, I could call in if you want or whatever, unless you're tired.
Well, it just depends on like if you have a topic you want to talk about. I mean,
I mean, now is there anything you want to talk about? I mean, you can talk about COVID, Canadian politics, American politics, whatever.
I mean, I don't have anything specific. Usually, if somebody's calling in, they're like you're the one that would bring in like a
Oh, I mean,
topic.
give me an overview of your discussion with the previous person, so I can maybe expand on that.
Well, there was two people I had a previous discussion with. One was about Sweden's I guess broadly like did Sweden's like non-lockdowns work or not, and then before that it was like a broad discussion of like COVID mandates. So if you want to like talk about either of those things, you can, or if you want to bring up whatever you want to bring up, then you can.
Well, well, it's hard to talk about COVID. Okay, we can talk about Canadian politics if you like. I don't know much about well, I know so I know a bit about American politics, a little bit about European politics, but not that much about Canadian politics.
Sure. Is there anything in particular you want to know about, or?
Well, so is what do you call it? Justin Trudeau still your prime minister?
Yep.
So y'all have a what do you call it? A parliamentary system, right? Like more similar to UK or Israel.
Yep.
So basically, instead of having so in America we have the Republicans and the Democrats, where the Republicans are a broad coalition of the right parties, and the Democrats were a broad coalition of the left parties nominally, and we have a two-party system. But and I know in Canada and the UK and I don't know about France, Israel. I know I think Ireland. Like there's a couple of I know like other countries which have it, and basically a parliamentary system. How exactly does a parliamentary system work again? I think it's a multi-party system.
Yeah, so we have, you can technically have as many parties as you want, but what makes a party kind of an official party is that you have to, like, make an official party, and then for you to get funding and stuff like that, I think you have to have an above a 3% party, like population, popular vote, so like 3% of the whole nation has to vote for your party for you to get, like, more funding in upcoming elections. How it works out in general is that you vote on MPs, and MPs are representatives from a specific region in your area. So, I mean, I could go look up a map of MPs, but think of it as in the United States like counties. Each county in Canada has an MP that represents them.
Well,
and that
is it
MP
more equivalent to counties, or is it more equivalent to states? Because we have states in America for generally they have the most.
Yeah. What would the equivalent to a state in Canada would be like the province of Ontario. A county is the equivalent of a municipality in Canada. So an MP is a person who represents like a section of land called a municipality, I guess. Yeah, in a sense,
It's more equivalent to like a county.
Kind of, yeah. So like a county might.
Well, it's probably more equivalent to like the American House of Representatives, where it's not one House representative from each state. Each state has like numerous House representatives, and they draw up districts. I mean, it might be bigger districts than.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, but instead of that only making up the House, that makes up like our whole our whole parliament.
And so basically, is the way it works is when you have a coalition government of parties, they vote for whoever the next PM is in the parliament.
If you have a coalition, well, we haven't had a coalition in Canada forever, but I would assume that's probably no. It would be if a coalition government forms in Canada, whichever party has the more votes of the coalition. So let's say the NDP and the Liberals form a coalition, which they haven't so far. But if they do form a coalition in the first place, Justin Trudeau would still be the prime minister because he has more votes than the NDP do.
I see, but then so wait, how exactly do y'all elect the prime minister? Doesn't it the parliament that decides the prime minister?
So each party will elect a leader of said party. Justin Trudeau was elected the leader of the Liberal Party back when he was up for election, and then the current leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, was recently elected by what they call the Conservative Party caucus. And they vote on a leader, and then that leader represents the party, and the party is what you elect to government instead of you.
I see, but is it so I'm saying, like, are the members of parliament the ones who decide? So are members of parliament of the Conservative Party the ones who decide who the Conservative Party leader is?
Yep.
Or is it the voters?
The voters elect the MPs, and the MPs decide who the leader is. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's my point. So the leader of the party is decided by the MPs, but the MPs are voted on by the voters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So that means that like it's more like the MPs or they're the ones who, because at least they're the ones who control who's the leader of the party, and whoever the leader of the party is, if they have the bigger party, then when do they get the prime ministership?
Well, they get the prime ministership if they win the election, and the election is won by if you have so there's two forms of government that can be formed: a minority government and a majority government. A minority government means that you got the most votes in the election, but you don't control enough seats in the House, which is above 50%, to enact. Or technically that's not true. It's like 35% because you can split the votes based on the other two parties. But if your party controls the majority of votes in the House, then you are in control of. No, it is 50%. Sorry. 50% is a majority government, which means that your party, your sole party, holds more than 50% of the seats in the House of Parliament. And if you have lower than that, then you're a part of a minority government. And if you go somehow even lower than that, then you might have to make a coalition government. And a minority just means that you don't control all the votes. So
And who are the major? So I know, I'm pretty sure, isn't Justin Trudeau from the Liberal Party?
Yes.
So who are the major players? So in America, we have the Republicans, who are a broad coalition of the Conservative Party, or more of the right party, but the Democrats were more of the left party. So the Liberals would be like more in line with the Democrats, and would like the Conservative Party be more in line with the Republicans, or like
Yeah, so
what are the right and left?
I would say that the conservatives in Canada are more to the left of the Republicans in the United States, and the liberals in Canada are pretty much on par with the Democrats. And then we have a third party called the NDP, which sees some like national like focus, like they're another big party, and they are further to the left of like the Democrats in the United States, and they're further left of the liberals.
Well, in America, we have the Green Party, which is so we have there's in American politics, there's technically one Democratic Party, but there's really more accurately two wings. So obviously, President Biden, but in the party, there's different senators and House people, and because we're a two-party system, there's more ideological diversity. So you can have people who are conservative to an extent, but not as conservative. You have more people who are more conservative, but they're under the Republican tent. You have people who are liberal, but more liberal, and then even more liberal than that in the Democrat Party. And generally, the progressive wing of the Democrat Party is, are you familiar with AOC or
Yep.
like Bernie Sanders? We have more progressive type politicians, if you know who they are. So in the House, there's the Squad, which is a coalition of like more progressive people in the House, and that's, I believe, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, Cory Bush, etc. And in the Senate, there's not a Squad, but they are. That's the most progressive or the most left wing we have in the Senate would be like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren for the most progressive senators. But the more moderate Democrats, or not necessarily moderate, but there's more moderate Democrats as well, like Joe Biden or previous former President Barack Obama, who are Democrats, but they're not as liberal. And the more liberal wing of the Democrat Party is generally more they're generally more pro-big government, more like anti. I don't really want to say anti-America, but they kind of are. But not really. But just their policies are more anti-military, at least, and more more pro-big government, and more progressive on social issues. So they're more like the progressive wing. So, and similar in the Republican Party, there's probably less ideological diversity. But again, for the Republican Party, it's probably more. So the Republican Party is more conservative than the Democratic Party is liberal. Or the left, or the Democratic Party is much more ideologically diverse than the Republican Party generally.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So, like in America, you can be a Democrat and you're going to have more ideological diversity with your peers. But if you're a Republican, you're going to be more solidly conservative generally. Because now the reasons for this, I don't know, but it's also because generally Democrats have a lot of constituency groups, and there's more diversity, but it's just overall as a whole, it's more ideologically diverse. But the difference is we don't have like many different parties. Like you have several parties, we have two, and so we have third parties, but those never win. So we have the Libertarian Party, which is like a right-wing but anti-government party, but they're never going to win. And the Green Party, which is like the left of the Democrats, or more probably equivalent to your NDP.
Kind of. I mean, we also have a Green Party, and they.
Well, I'm saying the Green Party, where it is ideologically, is probably more equivalent to the NDP in Canada. It's probably like more ideologically equivalent than it is to the Liberal. It's more to the left.
Maybe, yeah. I would need to look into like what your Green Party typically votes on, but I would.
Well, the Green Party generally, they are like Medicare for free college. Like I've heard one of them say they want to abolish nukes, the existence of American nukes. So they're, at least by American standards, pretty out there, and even by Canadian standards, like I don't know. I don't really know how far left they would be under Canadian standards, but they're also big on environmentalism too. They're also big on do you know what the Green New Deal is? It's a proposal in American politics, basically, and it would
Yep.
like trying to transition us from fossil fuels. So, I definitely lean more to the right party or more to the Republicans, but because I just don't think many of the Democrats' policies are good at all. But, that's just my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
But so you have the NDP, the Conservatives, the Liberals. Is that it, or are there any other major parties?
So those are the major parties. There are some more like kind of fringe parties. So like the Green Party is becoming more fringe. They used to be a little bit more kind of a main party, but now they're becoming more fringe. And then there's the very fringe PPC, which gets like 1% of the vote, and they were recently formed after like the 2016 election.
I believe. I know. Are you familiar with Dr. Peterson, Dr. Jordan Peterson?
Yep.
So in America, he's generally known as a right-leaning psychologist professor. He doesn't describe himself as right-leaning, but that's his general perception. And I believe I've heard him talk about this PCP, but he knows more about Canadian politics than I do.
Okay. Yeah.
But he's considered. I don't know if he's a registered Conservative Party voter. He said he doesn't describe himself as conservative, but that's generally what his perception is.
Okay.
So, in terms of Canadian news outlets, what are some? So, I know you all have you have CBC, I believe. But what are some Canadian news outlets?
Yeah. So we have CBC, CTV, and then there's the French channels like RDS and TVA, but those are basically the same thing as the other two, but in French.
And what about private?
We don't have major private media outlets like CTV and CTV and CBC are both like more.
Do you know any American outlets?
Yeah, CNN, at Fox News.
So generally, yeah. So in America,
MSNBC.
we have much more prominent private networks. So we do have alternative things. So if you're into podcasting or anything like that, or alternative news, there's obviously YouTube, Spotify, Twitch, which are accessible. But for cable news, generally Fox, CNN, and not necessarily MSNBC. That's more of a news channel. NBC is the broad affiliate, which includes MSNBC and ABC as well. So we have so Fox, they do politics. They also do sports, entertainment. And at CNN, they do financial news and mostly political news. And NBC, they do financial news on CNBC, general news on NBC, and on MSNBC specifically, it's more of a pundit network. And generally, if you know more the political bias, political affiliation, generally Fox News is more associated with the right, and generally CNN is more associated with the left or center left, and generally MSNBC is associated more with the left, or at least the Democrats.
Okay, yeah. I agree technically. Yeah.
And so, so Canadian politics. I don't know much about what y'all like. What are some Canadian political issues that are happening right now?
Mostly revolving around inflation right now, but they're kind of boring because the Conservative Party, all they want to say is, to combat inflation, we're just going to lower your taxes and cancel any further tax cuts. But that's not really a...
Well, I mean, that they might do supply side economics, so
yeah, but they
that might be more of a...
Because they're not really
supply side
advocating for that stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
What?
Go ahead with what you're saying.
If they're talking about reducing inflation, it might be... I don't think you just cut taxes to reduce inflation. I'm pretty sure the supply side is where you generally deregulate and tax businesses less, and the idea is that there's increased economic growth and lower prices or increased economic investment. That's more like supply side, whereas demand side is like Keynesian, where you give more money to people in hopes that you're gonna see more economic growth from that investment. But if the Conservatives want to cut taxes or whatever, that sounds like more like they're trying to apply as more of a supply side philosophy.
Yeah, kind of, but it's like the only thing they're going for. They're not really... I mean, they lightly talk about it, how they're gonna like increase the goods we create or whatever, but they don't really have much specific policy on it. They'll just say they'll do it, but we don't know if they'll actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah. I mean, if inflation is the only thing y'all have at the win, then y'all are kind of lucky because we got all sorts of things in America. Particularly massive increases in violent crime.
Yeah, we do have increases in Canada about violent crime, but we recently passed a bill to kind of hopefully curb that, and it got some political kind of throwback, but I think it kind of like quickly died as an issue, where we basically banned handguns from being purchased. Where I don't know if I truly agree with it, but if it works, it works. I own a handgun anyways, but
I mean, so for outside of the self-defense or whatever aspect, I don't think that's the main issue. I think probably the main issue specifically for violent crime. So in America, the main reason, in my opinion, why there's an increase in violent crime is probably because we did certain bail reform laws, which allowed earlier release of criminals without bail. So that might be one aspect. Prosecutors not enforcing the law might be another, but we have we have the Federal Department of Justice and the Attorney General, but those only really serious crimes. Most crimes are prosecuted on the level of district attorney, which is at the very local level, or more equivalent to like a county or whatever you have in Canada. And so, if there's a district attorney who's incompetent at prosecuting crime, then that means crime increases. Crime policy is definitely complicated, but in terms of violent crime specifically, just are some ideas that have been proposed as things like just increasing enforcement of laws and getting rid of the bail reform laws. But I mean, I'm sure it's handguns is going to solve anything.
well, the purpose of banning handguns is that if no handguns are allowed to get into the nation, then how do you get handguns to people who cause crimes?
So there are a couple issues with that. So first of all, property crime. There's a lot of property crime that doesn't involve that.
Oh no, but in Canada, it's mostly just gun violence. It's not property crimes and stuff.
So property crime, assault, other issues. Second of all, for people who, well, at least in America, we have. And second of all, I mean, if you can't even buy a handgun, then that also means you can't defend yourself.
Yeah, but in Canada, we don't have the same defense laws, so you can't even use a weapon to defend yourself in Canada, regardless.
Then maybe you should change that, probably.
Well, it seems to have worked so far, but we have a lot less deaths than you guys in the States, and a lot less problems involving violent crime.
I mean, specifically, it depends. So if you're talking about gun crime, probably I'm talking about
in crime in general. Typically, we have lower crime than.
I don't really know. I mean, so we have much higher. So I mean, maybe probably per capita, we're a much bigger country, so we probably have much higher on average crime.
But this per capita, probably... you guys have more violent crime than Canada does.
Yes. So on average, I'm saying on average, on per capita, we probably have more violent crime. But the reason why is probably because when you have a bigger population,
that's what per capita takes into account.
Well, the thing, but even when you're talking about per capita, when you have a bigger population, this means that more people are gonna congregate in larger cities, and generally in areas where they're in larger cities, they're more likely to be more, what do you call it? When people are in bigger cities, they're more likely to be prone to violent crime generally.
Yeah, but that's kind of what per capita takes takes into.
Well, no, per capita is just how much you do it per amount of people.
Yeah, but then you can shrink that down into like cities as well. So like Toronto versus like whatever comparable city you have in the United States, it will still have, like, Toronto will have less crime than it. Besides like your top ranking cities.
So you're saying like that the population on average, when you compare even like areas with similar size, that it's lower?
Yep.
Yeah, that is just an issue where I'd have to research more into it. And I'm sure it's also probably a variety of factors too. Like,
it's our culture. It's our like idea of how we like in the United States. You guys have a very big self-defense on like, oh, to defend myself properly, I need to kill the other person, which is like fair enough. I agree. Like, you should be able to murder somebody who comes after you, and you can in Canada, but you can't do it with a gun. Where you can do it with a gun, only in specific situations. It's very difficult. There's a couple Supreme Court cases on it that I would have to dive into to fully explain it, but you can and can't in Canada defend yourself with a gun. it would kind of depend. In general, you can, or you're most likely going to get away with it, but you'll still go through trial as a murderer, but you'll probably get the charges dropped. But
Yeah,
in the
then
United States,
I
in
would
the United States, you can kind of, in a lot of places in the United States, you can just full on shoot somebody that's walking on your property, and you don't have to deal with it at all. You just kind of just like no checkout.
So I mean, so it depends on the district. There are areas with different defense laws, but I'm pretty much in the United States. You universally have the right to defend yourself if your life's in danger. Even in some states you have a duty to flee, but that's rare. And even when you do, you still, if you can't flee, then you can still shoot it. And when it comes to like defending your property, there's a lot of areas which even allow you to use the escalate. So it depends whether also they allow you to escalate. So if they allow you to escalate, then you can shoot someone if they're trying to take your property. But if they don't, then they might say that you can defend yourself, but only if your life's in danger. It depends on the district, but I mean, generally, my opinion is if someone's coming after you, then or even your property, then that's on you to defend yourself. Or the government should have a police force to help you, but you should still be able to defend yourself at the end of the day. But that's just my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
I'm talking about the kind of the broad kind of culture of the United States, and I think it's just a little bit more like violent than Canada's is, and that's why you have.
I mean, but yeah, I mean that might explain like maybe an increase in like on average gun violence. In terms of gun crime, I don't think that has, because if you're talking about self defense, if you say it's legal, then it's not a crime, right? So I
Yeah,
don't know how that compares.
Well, if we're talking about gun violence, then typically that's not involving like self defense. I don't think. But it could
But
be.
I thought we were talking about. You said the reason why is because you all have much more self defense thing.
What did I say was the reason for what?
I thought you said that one of the reasons why we have more violent crime specifically is because of self defense, but self defense is
No, it's
legal,
just the
so
general.
it wouldn't
It's
be a
just the
crime.
general. It's just the general culture of the United States that you have a much higher propensity to turn to lethal force than Canada is. Whereas in Canada, we have a like, you can't. Part of the self defense is like if you punch somebody in the face, like somebody breaks into your house, and you hit them in the face with a bat and they fall to the ground, you can't hit them again, or else you'll be charged with what the fuck's it called? Excessive use of force, basically.
Yeah,
So-
but I'm saying if that's legal in America, that's not a crime, though.
I'm not saying it's a crime. I'm just telling you what might lead to your.
Yeah, but you
more
said it
violent
increased
crime.
the amount of crime, so
Yeah, no. The
What's it-
culture might, because now you have a society that's more propensity to become violent. So when you're in a situation where crime is happening, you might be more. They might have a higher propensity to turn to violence to solve that whatever issue. Whereas in Canada, we don't have to, like, we typically don't result to violence, or like lethal violence, I should say.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, generally when you talk about crime policy or how you deal with criminal justice issues, it's probably a combination of culture, policy, how much access there is to weapons, but also how much access there is to legal versus illegal weapons, how much access there is to self-defense, maybe.
Well,
Maybe
the
you're right
access
about
to the access to what's always interesting about the legal versus illegal obtaining of weapons is that your access to illegal firearms increases with your access to legal firearms, because most illegal firearms are obtained from other people who purchase weapons legally. It's not like they're coming off like the docks and
Yeah, I'm
there's a
saying,
mob
but these
boss
all
getting
play a
them.
factor.
Yeah, but that's why Canada has less gun crime, because you have way more heavy restrictions on guns. And to give a specific example of that, like pistols being banned.
Yeah, but even then, it goes into culture. So if you've never had a gun culture, then this means it's a lot easier to regulate guns. But if you have a gun culture, it's a lot harder to regulate guns.
Yeah, but that doesn't really
Like
solve the problem.
if in America we try to ban guns, that's not feasible because we already have a gun culture. But if since in Canada you've never had a gun culture, then that means that it's a lot easier to regulate. I don't know.
Well, not kind of, but if the population of the United States was against guns enough, then you would get it done. It wouldn't be that hard.
What?
If the population of the United States was more against guns than it is now, then you would have a pretty easy time banning guns.
Yeah, but I'm saying the gun culture means that people aren't against guns.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't really, I don't know what that. That's
Yeah,
kind
but
of
I'm
my
saying
point,
that's a culture issue too.
Well, yeah, that's part of my point. Yeah.
But even then, like, obviously, again, like, but even because there's more legal and illegal things in circulation, even assuming you regulated out the legal market, assuming the legal actors want to give up the guns, I don't think that would illegal actors want to give up any weapons, too.
Sure, but now illegal actors have harder it's like harder for them to distribute the weapons, because like in the United States you have your like there's like the private there's the private sale loophole or whatever the heck it's called, where if you sell a weapon privately between two individuals, you don't have to track it, you don't have to register it back to the.
Well, I think you're talking about the gun show loophole. That's different. But no, and specifically when you're talking about the idea of yeah, but so if you're the idea is that when you have a culture which is anti-gun, but they give up their guns, but the guns are already in circulation, then the legal population might voluntarily dissolve themselves, but the illegal population might not voluntarily dissolve themselves. You just get rid of the self-defense for the legal population.
I know, but the point is to restrict access to the illegal population. Like in Canada, it's really hard for you to get a gun, so it's really hard for criminals to get guns too.
You're right, but I'm saying in America, because guns exist, criminals aren't giving up their guns.
Yeah, I know, but if you instituted like a buyback program, like let's say tomorrow the United States somehow accomplishes banning all weapons, and they have a buyback program where they'll buy back your weapons, then suddenly there's a bunch of weapons that are off the market, and now while criminals might have the current guns,
but they said voluntary buyback, because you said if the culture was anti-gun, then they would give up. I'm saying if it was a voluntary buyback, a legal criminal wouldn't voluntarily give up the gun.
Yeah. My point, you didn't let me finish my point. My point is that those criminals, while they might have access to the guns that they currently have, they can't get access to new weapons, and if they're caught with those weapons disappear forever, and then for them to get new guns is very difficult. So while you might have a problem that lingers for a little while after the fact, that problem will go away as those guns leave circulation, because there's no new guns coming into circulation.
I guess, but again, it just depends how many guns criminals already have access to, for how long it's going to fester.
Sure, but then you can have other things where you do like crackdowns on people with illegal firearms, where you start like searching places.
But you said that this was a buyback, where I'm saying they wouldn't give up if it was a voluntary buyback, so they can choose not to.
But what you do is you do the voluntary buyback for all your legal citizens. So now your legal citizens don't have any weapons. Now you have a problem. There's the other problem, like that you mentioned, where criminals still have guns. So how you deal with them is that you institute a crackdown on illegal firearms, where you start sending police to places that are suspect of having illegal firearms, and you go look for the firearms, and you seize them.
I mean, I don't really know how it's feasible in a country as big as this.
It's the United States. I think you guys are pretty much capable of anything. So.
But also, if they're criminals, they're underground, so you can really track them. Or
yeah, but although the prohibition was bad policy for other reasons, they were really good at finding people with alcohol, right? Like, if there's a will, there's a way. The United States will find every single fucking firearm.
But a voluntary buyback means that those who have guns who don't give them up can keep them. So the criminals who have guns, assuming that they're not indicted, they're not prosecuted, they're just doing illegal activity, but they're not public about it, then they could keep their guns, but they wouldn't have to give it up to the government.
Yeah, you're right. And then the police would come knocking at their door saying, "We're seizing your guns. We have reason to believe that this gun is being used for illegal activity because it wasn't registered to the federal, whatever the fuck, federal gun registration." So then they seize that gun, and now because there's less guns, because there's less guns in the country, that criminal has less access to new guns.
If you're talking about the background check system, there are people who own guns who didn't have to go through a background check, so this wouldn't be voluntary. So if you institute a background check in reverse, then you'd have to force register the existing firearms, but that would mean you'd have to do a background check in reverse, which I don't think you can do.
If you're doing a gun crackdown program, I think that you would be able to figure out ways of finding out who has guns that might not have access to them.
Well, so in America, there are a lot of people who
and also, just an FYI, but like this is like stuff you can do in real time. My point still stands that over time this would like go away slowly, because there would be less access to future firearms.
No, but I'm saying for the criminal population, they couldn't go through if they're criminal but they didn't go through a background check, then you don't know if they're criminal or not.
Well, they would have an illegal firearm in them. You'd find out that they're criminal once you find that.
But
firearm.
no, I'm saying if they bought it legally but didn't give it up.
Yeah, but then they would be criminals under that. So like, are you saying that someone buys a firearm, has it registered to the federal firearm registry, and then they don't give the gun up when there's let's say there's a mandatory gun buyback program instead of a voluntary one.
Well, that's only if you, I thought you said you were talking about a voluntary buyback
Well, a
program.
voluntary one, then they don't have to give it back, and they're not criminals. But if they have an unregistered firearm...
Under a voluntary buyback system, that's just they give it up if they want to or not, regardless whether they're criminals or not. So the government doesn't go after people.
No, but then you would have, if there was still a problem of violent crime after the voluntary buybacks, you would then bring in new legislation for, a crackdown on illegal firearms that are held by criminals. Then you would find a way to, you would probably not, charge people who have firearms that, like if you have a voluntary buyback program and people who have legally registered their firearms, you would exclude all those people from this crackdown, and you would only go after weapons that aren't registered.
But there are people who have firearms which are legal but not registered, because you can have a legal firearm that's not registered.
Yeah, and those people should go get their firearms registered if this sort of legislation...
Well, then that's forced registration, which is more like a mandatory buyback.
No, because you can still keep your firearms, you just have to register them. In Canada, you have to register your firearms unless they're like quote-unquote legacy firearms, which are like firearms that are handed down to you or old as fuck. Those don't need to get registered because they're old as fuck. But those.
Well, I'm saying, but some legally owned guns there would be regulations on even legally owned guns too, not just illegal.
Yeah, potentially, but that's kind of the point. There's a lot of regulations on legally owned guns here in Canada as well. Yeah.
And plus, again, there's also like the freedom and the self-defense aspect too. It's all bad too.
Yeah, but we're kind of talking in a hypothetical world where you've actually passed gun control. I mean, we can backtrack a bit and talk about is it even possible to pass gun control in the United States on a popular level and what that would look like. But it's a different conversation.
I mean, but there's also the issue of the scale. Like if you're talking about a country with over 300 million people, with complex criminal justice system and violent crime. And organized crime, but even individualized violent crime, and then you have the issue of self-defense too, where to protect those laws. There's just so many factors from people, and even practical. You're talking about a program that, from an on.
Hold on, you're cutting out a lot right now. Just
I said, you're talking about a program which is really big, which in a country as big as the United States, again, over 330 million people. I don't know if it's feasible.
Sure, but at the end of the day, it's the United fucking States. You guys can kind of do whatever you want. I mean, again, doing nothing, does that, should that mean you do nothing? Just because you don't think that it's potentially not feasible, does that mean you do nothing for gun control?
I mean, I don't believe in gun control off the principle of self-defense.
Yeah, but imagine you're in the mind of somebody that does believe in gun control, like me. Why would what you just said deter me from trying? I would obviously want to try that. I would still want to try.
Because if you're going to pursue a policy which there's a lot of possibility it might not work in some contexts in terms of feasibility, then why implement it if it's might not be something that your government can handle?
Because you said a lot of words called might, and it's the United States of America, and they can usually do whatever they want. So it's a good bet that gun control could happen in the United States.
In the same way, I don't think it's, even though I'm pro-life, I don't think it's feasible to do a federal abortion ban now, but in the future we could. It would just have to require a lot of change. Theoretically, the only way you could get a gun ban is if you had massive legal and political change, and then you have to factor in massive cultural change where you got the population
and the cultural change is kind of on the way because people are more supportive of gun control. In the same way with abortion, the reason why an abortion ban doesn't work right now is because a lot of people really like abortion. People are like, fuck you, we're voting in more Democrats at the midterm.
The reason why abortion ban federally wouldn't work is because abortion ban federally would be very unpopular. The reason why abortion... Yeah, but I'm saying abortion bans at states are going to be some popular and some unpopular. So
I know, but we just learned, based on the midterms, that that what happened to Roe v. Wade, nobody likes that, and they want Roe v. Wade back so that it's federally legal for you to have an abortion.
Well, it's going to be federally legal any scenario that exists unless you have a constitutional amendment.
Well,
so I'm saying,
it's
in
not legal
America,
right now.
the culture of abortion
abortion isn't federally legal. Any state can ban abortion right now because Roe v. Wade.
No, I mean the abortion isn't federally codified into law. It is federally legal. So there's no federal regulations on abortion, I believe.
I know, but there's not.
There's only
I know, but the regulation was is that you couldn't ban it, but now you can ban it.
and since
people
you
don't
can
like
ban it, some states are gonna have bans which are feasible, like in a more conservative, more religious
but
state.
but as we learned in the midterms, people really didn't like that, and they went and voted, and they got.
Well, that's on the federal level. People don't want a federal abortion ban, but on the state, it depends on the state.
I know, but
So
the federal Roe v. Wade made it so that states can't ban abortion. That got overturned, and people are saying no. States don't have the right. People are voting right now to say that states don't have the right to ban abortion. Abortion has
in
to be
some
legal.
states they are. So in
Because Roe v. Wade got overturned.
Yes, I'm saying in some states or some votes they may have said that they think that there should be a federal abortion ban, but it's only in the Democratic states. I'm saying in the Republican or more conservative states, they think that it should be a state issue, so that way their state can regulate it or whatever. But I'm saying a federal abortion ban isn't feasible because at a federal level, they don't want to ban it yet because there are too many states which like abortion. So I'm saying a federal abortion ban.
Yeah, but that's my point. A federal abortion ban isn't feasible because it's not popular at all. So something like gun control, which is slowly becoming more and more popular, is probably possible. If it's just based on, if your contention with it is not based on anything other than popularity.
No, so I'm talking about abortion. Federally, is a federal ban on abortion is unpopular. A state ban on abortion can be popular or unpopular depending on the scenario.
Yeah, it seems like right now, based on how Roe v. Wade being overturned, affected the midterms. It didn't affect the midterms. It did. There was supposed to be a massive red wave, and there wasn't. So
yeah, but that didn't have to do with Roe. It
had a large part to do with Roe v. Wade. It might not have been the sole thing.
No, it didn't. No,
why not?
The polls overwhelmingly showed that social issues. In America, the way it works is we don't really vote on social issues on the federal level. So social issues like abortion, you don't vote on that for a federal level. Generally, we vote on things like inflation or crime. So that's
Roe v. Wade. Wait. Roe v. Wade is a federal issue.
No, but it's overturned, so it's not a federal issue anymore.
Yeah, I know. That it being overturned by the federal government, the Supreme Court, was a federal thing that people were voting on in the midterms. Yeah. Same with.
Yeah, but I'm saying that wasn't a priority, is what I'm saying.
I never said it was a priority either. It was It was one of the big factors. It might have not been the sole leading one.
It wasn't a big factor. Either.
Yes, it was. How was it not? There was a historic halting in a red wave, and the big things that happened in that time was Roe v. Wade was overturned, and weed happened, and student loan forgiveness.
So if you're talking about specifically the midterm, so you're a Canadian. I'm an American. I know more about the American politics. When you're talking specifically about the midterms, no, when you're talking specifically about the midterms, because Roe v. Wade overturned, and because Democrats overperformed, Republicans underperformed, that doesn't necessarily prove a correlation with Roe v. Wade.
I never said it was directly correlated. I'm saying it was a big factor. Like, it's not the only one. Like, if you think, if you think Roe v. Wade nothing was ever overturned about Roe v. Wade, what do you think happens at the midterms? You think it goes exactly how it transpired right now?
Probably.
Why?
Because the main reason why people voted in the election was for other reasons.
What was the other reasons?
Inflation, the economy, democracy. For a lot of Democrats, they thought Republicans, or even independents, and even some Republicans thought some Republicans were election deniers. It's mostly economic.
What do you think? What do you think? That's mostly true for like a lot more older. What do you think drove like young people to vote? Because young people are really affected by inflation.
The majority of the electorate. The majority of the electorate was voting mostly on the economy and crime, not necessarily social issues.
Yeah, sure, but there was a record turnout for young voters. What do you think drove that?
I mean, if there was a record of turnout probably inflation and crime.
I don't think so. The record turnout for young people was mostly to do with weed policy and Roe v. Wade.
I mean, if you're saying young people more care about social issues, maybe, but again, I don't think that's a major factor.
It was a major factor. It was a major factor in the last midterms, is the point.
No, I'm saying it wasn't.
It was.
My opinion
There was a record turnout for young voters under the age of 30. And that happened to happen right after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and right after some fucking shit was happening.
We don't know to what
student loan
extent
forgiveness.
the younger voters even influenced the election, because
We
just
do know
because
they
the younger
voted
voter,
in record numbers. There's data on how many young people voted, and then we have the outcome that we
show
have
how
now.
if they affected it or not.
We don't have like concrete, like guaranteed evidence, because that's never going to happen, right? That's not possible to study. But like we can see the correlation between more young people voting and more votes going to Democrats, and the same correlation is found with more voters in general. The more people go vote, the more Democrats seem to win.
So if you're talking specifically about more younger voters, the reason why younger voters, there's generally in America, younger voters tend to vote Democrat, and older voters tend to vote more Republican. Same way, more religious voters tend to vote Republican, and more secular voters tend to vote Democrat. So there are a couple of correlations, but the specific reason
why do you why do you think younger people vote more Democrat? Because it has something to do with
I mean,
abortion rights.
I don't know.
Yeah, part of it recently we found it was abortion rights. A lot of exit polls in many states that are heavy Democrat, or anywhere that was like, if you polled Democrats, especially young ones, their main issue going into the election was abortion, and then for older folks,
I don't know
probably more economy.
poll you have to cite that.
Okay, I guess we're looking into data now, even though you haven't really provided anything for what you said, but sure.
Well, I'm saying
most pressing issue for young voters.
I didn't make an empirical claim, though. I said banning guns itself at a federal level is an unpopular policy.
Yeah,
that's the only claim.
That's a kind of a... You would kind of need to prove it, but sure. Okay, here are the issues that matter for young voters. Healthcare.
Okay, economics.
Most students raise concerns about availability of affordable healthcare, the Affordable Care Act, ACA, so healthcare is one. Racial wealth gap. Student debt.
That's more of an those are
outlook.
Economic issue.
Yeah, so career outlook, like health is also included with like Roe v. Wade, but again, like this is CNBC, so what's at stake for young voters? Oh God, this is fucking... Where's the exit poll for Michigan?
Wait, how do we even get to this? I was just saying that the gun culture specifically made it unpopular. What does that have to do with abortion even?
Well, because you're making the case that for some reason young people didn't have an effect. Like I was saying that gun culture in the United States seems to be going more towards gun control, and then you seem to have a contention with that for some reason. And then I brought up like, well, we can see that in the United States right now that a lot of things are going towards kind of more gun control stuff, as we saw in the most recent midterms, where people overwhelmingly voted for Democrats and stopped what would be...
People didn't overwhelmingly vote for Democrats.
Yes, they did, because they stopped a red wave. Every single midterm...
That doesn't mean overwhelming vote.
Yes.
Wait.
There was an overwhelming young population of voters, and there was definitely an overwhelming vote of like...
Because the majority of the people who voted... Wait, that doesn't mean... So because Republicans didn't win, that doesn't mean Democrats got the overwhelming majority of voters. It's not how it works.
Whoa. That's not. I'm not saying overwhelming majority of voters. I'm saying there was a big push. This say in other terms. There was a how would I describe this in other words? Like a very rare occurrence happened. A very unlikely scenario happened where a red wave, which typically happens during these election cycles, like usually when a president gets elected in the United States, the following midterm is taken over by Republicans. But this time, for some reason, the Democrats held the Senate and held the House to like only lose like 10 seats.
So they lost the House and they had the same margins they did as the Senate.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a really rare occurrence. That never happens. Usually after an election, the reigning president, whatever party they are, both the House and the Senate are lost that coming midterm to whichever this.
Well, that's true in the House, not really true of the Senate.
Sometimes the Senate flips. This time it didn't, and it actually gained potentially. Right now, there's actually a Democratic majority. Like there's more of a majority, and the House barely flipped. Usually the House totally flips.
I mean, there's always a Democratic majority, but the House did flip, so that's what I'm saying. The House
Yeah,
usually
but it
flips,
barely
but not
flipped. The point, I don't know why you're just saying, oh, it flipped, like that's a normal thing. Like, it barely flipped. Like 10 votes. Usually it flips by like way the fuck more.
Again, it depends on the election.
No,
Like,
yeah,
even on the
and this election was a totally wild like election. Like this was not at all predicted to happen. Or like based on like past data, it was technically predicted to happen based on like recent polling. But like if you look at any other midterm, you're like, oh, the Democrats are gonna lose the House and the Senate. That's typically what happens. But this time they didn't, and they didn't lose the House by that much. Sorry, by that much.
So they lost the House, and they had a majority in the Senate, which they already had. But even if it's still lower margins, it's still. My point is, you said that the majority of voters
You're
turned out for Democrats.
downplaying the significance of the recent midterms. Stuff like this doesn't happen.
What do you mean it doesn't happen?
Like, this is a horrible playing with.
Like when Trump was president, the Republicans, I believe, kept the Senate after 2020, or not 20 after 2018. I thought. Or did they? I thought the Republicans kept the Senate after 2016 or 2018. The Senate didn't flip blue.
So, no, it did. So Donald Trump gets elected, then the Senate, sorry, this is the Senate or the House. The House flipped hardcore for the Democrats. Or what the fuck is this? 20 minus 20.
I'm talking in the midterm. So 2018, I think after 2018, the Democrats win the Senate.
Yeah. 2018, Donald Trump is elected as.
It was 2016 is when he was elected.
Yeah, I know, but this is his upcoming midterm. Is the 2018 midterm. So Donald Trump gets elected. 2018 rolls around, and the Republicans lose the House. Or they didn't gain back the House. I guess is more what it was. I don't know. I'm looking at this is a really fucking weird thing. So the Democrats gained 41 seats, and the Republicans lost 42 seats in the House. In the Senate, the Republicans gained 2 seats, and the Democrats lost 2 seats. In this upcoming election, in this election that just happened, the Democrats lost like 10 seats in the House and gained seats in the Senate.
So
that's unprecedented.
So what I'm saying is, so in both cases, or in this case, it was flipped. So last time it was this Senate, which
no, in both scenarios, this scenario and the last scenario, the Senate gained. So Donald Trump gained seats in the Senate, but lost massively in the House. In this scenario, the Senate, the Democrats gained seats in the Senate, or it looks like they will. They'll gain like 1, I think. And in the House, they lost seats, but they didn't lose anywhere near as many seats as Donald Trump did, or anyone. They only lost 10 seats.
Yeah, but they still
for example,
lost seats.
Barack Obama lost 63 seats. Donald Trump lost 41 seats. George W. Bush gained seats and gained because of the war. Like again, George W. Bush 2002 election was or his 2001 election, his 2002 midterms was a historical, like unprecedented event where he just like ran over the House and Senate and like had a full majority. Like Donald Trump historically had the House and the Senate for his first 2 years in office until the midterm election in 2018, and he did nothing with it.
Wait, so what's your I don't know your on at that point is. So first we're talking about...
My point is that historically, the first midterm of a president totally flips the House to the other side. But for Joe Biden, it didn't do that. There was a predicted red wave, and it didn't happen. Only 10 seats max were lost.
You said the House flipped.
What?
You said the House did flip, though.
Yeah, but it didn't flip by the same margin as ever before. That's the point.
But that has nothing... But the margins aren't what matter.
The margins definitely do matter. Yes, what? How do the margins not matter?
I don't know how... What do you mean the margins? Like, what do you mean the margins matter? I'm saying the trend is the same.
The trend is not the same. If I lose a hockey game, if I lose a sports game by 100 points, and the next time I lose it by 20 points... I lost both games, but there's a trend setting that I'm losing less. I didn't lose as much as I did last time. Right? No?
I mean, again, it's subjective in terms of how much individual House seats matter. But what is that?
That's
what
not
is it?
subjective. It's a huge difference between Donald Trump loses 41 seats, then Joe Biden in his first midterm only loses like 10. That's a pretty big difference. That never happens. Most presidents, when they come into office, that first midterm, they lose, as Trump said, bigly. Okay, they lose bigly.
I mean, you already can. Okay, then how do we know this is no more one-off than the Bush election or Bush midterms were?
But no, Bush's election, Bush's midterm was historical in the same sense that Joe Biden's is. George Bush, coming off of the fucking Twin Towers exploding, right, gains seats in the House and Senate. That's a historical moment. Yeah.
Yeah, so we could just say this is as historic as that, but
That's
even
my
then,
point. Yeah, and it's trending towards like more policies that the Democrats advocate for. That's my point. Yeah. Thank you for agreeing.
well, no, it's his.
In the same way that George W. Bush won in 2002 because people wanted him to be tough on terrorism. And then he was so tough on terrorism, he fucking massively lost in the 2006.
Well, it was. I would say it's probably more the financial crisis, but probably a variety of reasons. The financial crisis probably had more to do with it.
Probably, yeah.
But when it comes specifically to Joe Biden, I mean, you can say that losing a lot less is historic, but I mean, losing less isn't historic. It's just losing less.
It's very historic considering the circumstances. We have insanely high inflation, which has been, by the Republicans, largely pinned on Joe Biden. So insanely high inflation rates. So the economy is quote unquote really bad. But even though the economy is really bad, we didn't flip the house that hard. Usually when the economy's bad, like we saw with Bush, right, the economy crashes and Bush horribly loses the House and the Senate. Minus 32 seats and minus 6 seats because the economy's bad. The economy's still bad right now, and Joe Biden barely lost anything.
Okay, but what does that mean? That just means that
we stopped the tide.
This meant he was a net unpopular president in the House who was slightly more popular than we expected.
Yeah, which is a big deal. Yeah, that means that a Democratic president like Joe Biden is more popular than anyone has pretty much ever been before.
No, it means
yes, it does.
No, because you said Bush was more popular than before. It means he's temporarily less unpopular. No, if you're
what?
So no, that would be Bush.
This is a good show. Yeah, when 2002, when Bush ran his midterm and like won everything, that was historic. Yeah, he was probably the most popular president of all time, basically, in terms of like his midterm performance. So when Joe Biden does like a similar thing in 2020, that's like a historic moment for for Joe Biden and his presidency and what those kind of policies are pushing. Yeah. After 2002, there was the war on,
but gaining seats isn't the same as losing seats by lower margins. Like again, there's still a spectrum.
No, but it's okay. I don't know how you still don't understand like losing less, to use Trump's terms, less badly than anyone else ever, basically, besides like Bush in 2002, which again, like I've stated multiple times now, was extraordinary circumstances and very unique, right? By losing by less, how is that not extraordinary? That's like, my whole point is that it's an extraordinary moment in like U.S. politics history. Like that's a very rare thing to do, what Biden just did with the Democrats.
I mean, yeah, I mean that just but that doesn't even mean that the Democrats' policies are popular. It could just mean that a Republican policy or a Republican politician was or could be unpopular. So even then, it depends on the number of
I guess, but if the Republican politicians are historically unpopular, I wonder why. Like,
well, specifically, I don't know what specific policy, but again, we're talking about inflation.
Well, Roe v. Wade might be one of them. Republicans kind of unilaterally disagreeing with Roe v. Wade and saying that abortion should be banned. Essentially, might be a big factor to why they're unpopular, and their stance on weed and their stance on
again
gun control.
For the majority of voters, they're voting on inflation and crime. But also, you can say that you support an issue, but most people also vote on candidate personality. So if they think a candidate is a good candidate, even if they disagree with their policies, they might say that the candidate's personality matters more. So there's also personality and relatability, where Democrats might be more personally relatable, but that might not even translate into policy. So it's also a variety of factors that go into public opinion poll. It's not just policy; it's also candidate favorability and candidate like how good a candidate is. But
Yeah.
even among policies, it depends on the voter. So if a voter cares more about abortion, they might care about that. But there's also voters who care about abortion who are pro-life, and there are voters who don't care about abortion who are pro-choice, and there are voters who don't care about abortion who are pro-life too. So it just depends what your priorities are too. And
Yeah, and
so
my point is
that
that historically there seems to be a lot more prioritization on things like abortion, on gun control, on like economics has always been a case on anything. But the fact that despite our bad economy right now, that Biden was still able to hold the House to the numbers that he did, that's historic. So the economy's, like, you're right, people care about the economy. The economy's shit right now, and they didn't vote accordingly to how bad the economy is. They voted to support the Democrats more, even though, quote unquote, they're the party to blame, typically speaking, like how that works. Is that whoever the fuck is in power, you just blame them on the economy. And they weren't voted out, they weren't routed out of the House.
I mean, again,
right? Like we can look at the Bush 2008 midterm as a perfect example. The economy sucks, and they fucking flipped the House on them.
Then we just have to look at what individual issues or individual races candidate personalities and stuff like that too. Like we have to factor in like individual races. Like so, we have a Senate and we have a House, but we have large Senate and a large House. So you have to look at individual, like you have to look at an individual case by case basis. Or whatever. You have to look at individual politicians. So if a politician in one state has X position on abortion, voters in that state care about abortion, then in that context, maybe abortion might be the deciding factor. But if X has a certain personality trait that has nothing to do with abortion, that might affect that too. Or maybe it's in the state crime is up or crime is down. Like again, I'm saying there are other issues than even the economy, like other social issues or crime that can also play a factor. And for the minority of voters, even foreign policy to an extent. So I'm saying like the politics is complicated, but you're saying like it's all because of abortion, it's all because of this.
No, I'm not saying it's solely because of that. I'm saying it's a big factor.
I mean, it depends. What do you mean by big factor? What's
for young voters, it seems to have been a big factor for them. Because Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and suddenly fucking young voters are coming out of the woodworks to vote for him. Now, in part, that's also due, and potentially in larger part, due to student loan forgiveness. But abortion is also in that category.
I mean, student loan forgiveness was challenged in court and it is being lost.
It's being lost because of Republican lawmakers.
Exactly. But
so even more reason to vote Democrat, and that explains the halting of the red wave.
No, you basically asserted that young voters specifically care about student debt, which they couldn't get either way as a matter of law. And it's not because of Republicans, it's because of the judges and the judicial system.
Yeah, the judges and the judicial system that were elected and put in place by Republicans.
The judges and judicial system are appointed, not elected.
Yeah, okay, they're appointed by Republicans. That's my point.
Some of them are. I don't know what specific judge overruled it.
Yes, the judge that overruled the student loan forgiveness in Texas was a federal judge appointed by Donald Trump.
I mean, I don't know what specific case this is.
The student loan forgiveness that was happening in Texas. It was
I don't know what the name of the case is, so I don't know if the judge was appointed by Republican. But even if
he was appointed by Trump.
But I'm saying if he was appointed by a Republican and you vote for a Democrat, but that student loan debt is canceled or it's not canceled rather because of the Republican judge, I'm saying as a matter of law, even if you vote in more Democrats, they can't pass student debt because then the judge will still overrule it.
Yeah, but what you do is you elect Democrats so that they can bring in more favorable lawmakers for student loan forgiveness, and then it'll get through. The reason it didn't get through this time is because there were more Republican lawmakers in favor of not passing it.
Yeah, but that's only if the voters or the young voters only care about student loan forgiveness.
And a lot of young voters did care about that, and that's why they showed out in big numbers.
You're gonna have to show citation.
Okay, I can go show citations on why young voters care about student loan forgiveness. I wonder why they might do that.
No, I'm saying, do you have a Pew poll of young voters in your top priorities and show specifically that student debt cancellation was one of, and specifically that they support it? So that's three factors. You have to first show that young voters care about it, or no, that's two factors. First, you have to show that young voters care about it and it's a top priority, and you have to show that they support it. So there's two factors that you have to show, and you have to actually cite a poll on this. So you have Pew, Rapsos, Politico. I mean, there are lots of polling and news organizations which do this. So if you have a survey of young voters which shows it, I mean, I don't deny it, but again, you're gonna have to actually
Young
show some
people
data.
want student debt relief, but not all want it today. Totally canceled. Poll finds.
You
young
can
people-
link that in the Discord.
Sure. I'll read it first. Young people. Actually, I'll just link it. Young people want student loan debt relief, but they may not want it eradicated altogether. Researchers found in recent Harvard University poll. Total of 2,000 18 to 29-year-olds were surveyed. Of them, 85% said they favor some form of government action on student loan debt, but only 38% favored total debt cancellation. So, 85% of young people from this Harvard poll support some form of it. And we all know that the Republicans are going to give it.
Yeah. So even if young people support, so first of all, so this just shows that young people support it. Now you have to show that it's a priority for young voters.
Okay. Is student polling data suggests that student loan debt relief is not very important to young voters. Is this one on it not being important?
This is not important. So
yeah,
that's just...
hey, I'm just finding all the links that I'm finding here. So this is from Reason.com. Young voters blocked the red wave. Biden must deliver. Student loan forgiveness. Rally Gen Z to stop midterm red. So there's...
That's opinion piece.
Well,
not a poll.
Hold your horses. I haven't even read the article yet. Oh, I need to register for this fucking... So, according to Edison Research National Exit Poll, 63% of voters aged 19 to 29 supported Democrats, and 89% of black youth voters supported Democrats' House candidate. With the eldest Gen Zers turning 25 this year, this group included the youngest millennials and those Zoomers of voting age. So there's like an exit poll of how many people voted for. I know, but like, you do know that if you vote for the party, you probably like implicitly agree to like their policies, and one of those policies is
so young people might support student loan. I'm saying that might not be a priority. You have to show that it's a priority. So
I don't deny digging for the data, but you like when you vote for so historically young people never vote for fucking Democrats or anyone. They never vote for anyone, and then even through all of the other economic downturns that we've gone through, young people never fucking vote, and suddenly now they're voting for economic policies.
I mean, historically, young voters have voted Democrat majority.
No. I'm just saying, yeah, but of those people who do vote, it's a very small number. I'm saying that today, a record number of young people voted in general. And before, so you're saying that their top priority is probably economics. But historically, young people have never fucking voted, no matter what economic downturns we've gone through. 2006, before that, young people never vote. Suddenly, young people have voted in record numbers this election cycle, and the only thing that's changed is that the economy's bad, which has been bad before, and that didn't bring out young voters. And what else changed? Well, Roe v. Wade, student loan forgiveness, and some weed shit. So,
I support drug legalization. I think weed legalization is more of a state issue specifically.
That's not the point of my question, but or my statement.
I'm saying again, most people on the federal level vote for weed. That's their state referendum.
You'd be surprised what young people vote for.
I mean, so the way law works, at least in America, we don't prosecute weed on the federal level. You don't. No one is federally goes to jail for.
Yeah, but voters don't give a fuck about that. I don't know if you know that. I'm pretty sure most people don't know that or don't care to know that. They just want weed federally legal.
I mean, so first of all, there are Republicans, at least in the House, who said they support legal weed. But if you're talking about like the idea that
I know they support it, but nobody who votes for them gives a shit who's in jail for it or not. They just want it legalized federally. Okay,
so what you're saying is that they don't care that
Yeah, they don't care that nobody's in jail for it. They just want it legalized federally, regardless of who's in jail.
Yeah, and there are Republicans who support legalizing it federally. I mean, fewer than Democrats, but they still do support it.
Yeah, sure, but that kind of goes into my point. That's why young people voted for. So, young
I'm saying they're
people 18 to
Republican.
29 who voted in 2020 midterms said abortion was the top issue influencing their vote, followed by inflammation of crime and 5 possible.
Well,
out of
you
5
also
possible
said
choices with president.
weed. You said weed specifically too, and I said
Yeah,
they're
weed is
Republican.
one of the factors of the many. Jesus. You asked me what's their top issue, and this thing says that it was abortion.
Okay,
4
so
to
you're
5
right.
youths
So
who believe abortion should be legal in most cases voted for Democrat candidates. More young female voters cited abortion as a top motivation issue than young men. Gun control, youth were only age group to cite abortion as number 1 priority. So young voters prioritize abortion, older voters prioritize inflation, and then there's like a circle fucking what is this? Tufts University something whatever the fuck. Oh, I just went this to you.
Okay, so young voters, in your opinion, are most motivated by abortion.
Not in my opinion anymore, based off of this, whatever you want to call this, poll. Young voters seem to, 44% of 18 to 29-year-olds say that abortion is their top priority. Then it's inflation at 21%. Then it's crime at 13%. Then it's gun policy at 9%. And then it's immigration at 7%. Older people, the oldest group of 65-year-olds, abortion is 22%, 45 to 64-year-olds, 24%, and 30 to 44, abortion was 31%. So young people, it was their top priority. For everyone else, it was their second highest priority, according to this.
But old people voted majority Republican generally.
Yeah, this is a poll of Democrat voters.
Oh, for Democrat voters, but I'm saying voters as a whole too. Like you have to look at other.
Yeah, but of the people who voted, there was a big wave of Democrat voters.
No, it was but that just shows that young voters.
Wait, actually, there's more on the thing. According to the exit polls, youths were the age group most likely to say abortion should be legal in almost. Actually, this isn't a poll on. This is a poll on anyone, not just specifically Democrat voters. But obviously, this poll goes on to say that the view was reflected in their vote choice, as young people who expressed that position on abortion voted Democrat candidates by an extraordinary 64-point margin. 80% for Democrats, 16% for Republicans. So this poll is actually just they were just asking anyone, but then obviously, if you prioritize abortion, you're probably gonna vote Democrat.
My brain's fried.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably then that just shows that there's more young voter turnout or more young Democrat support because they support abortion. But for older voters, I'm saying they might not support abortion as much because, as a whole, older voters didn't.
Yes, but my point has been this entire time was about young voters, and even if we do look at older voters, this poll still shows that older voters, it was their second highest priority.
Yeah, this is polled of older Democrats.
No, this is a poll of anyone.
Oh, I mean, but then that just shows that clearly abortion still wasn't the main issue because older voters still voted majority Republican.
Oh, God. My entire point this time has been about young voters because they were the biggest push into this new election cycle. Young voters came out in record numbers, and young voters, predominantly for that reason, was because of abortion. And outside of that, abortion was still a top priority for everyone else.
Yes, but I'm saying for everyone else, it wasn't even like a factor for the majority of
Yes, it was! It's their second choice!
No. Then they would if they're pro-choice, then the older voters, if it's such a big issue, then they would have voted Democrat, but they didn't.
Record numbers of people voted for Democrats this past midterm. Because this was
but the majority still voted for Republicans for older voters.
Yeah, but a majority that was a lot tighter than ever before in human history. Besides Bush.
What? No, the Bush midterms were pro-Republican. They weren't tight, but
I know, but they were pro-Republican because the fucking Twin Towers exploded. This time we have a horrible economy, and what happened, right? Like, we have a really bad economy, and yet somehow the Democrats held back what should have been a historic win for Republic, or a typical win, really,
And what's the point? The point is that
The point is
Why?
that young people came out to vote, and the biggest reason why young
Okay.
people came out to vote was because of abortion. And
And then you
even
brought- and then you
excluding
brought
young
up-
people, abortion was a top priority of everyone else.
and clearly abortion didn't affect older voters as much.
Yes, it
Like,
did.
not even-
It's saying right here it did.
It didn't say that it was the second priority, first of all, and I said
It was the top
Then-
priority of young voters, and it was the second priority of everyone else. That sounds like it's a big priority for why people voted in the midterms.
then the older voters clearly weren't completely on the pro-choice side, is what I'm saying. So you're not
So
listening.
wait, do you want me to find another poll on which older voters were pro or against abortion?
No, I'm saying the older voters in majority numbers voted for Republicans, so then they clearly didn't care as much about abortion if they're pro-choice.
What the fuck does this
So
have
I'm
to do
saying-
with anything?
You said that older voters were also Democrats, which is not true.
No, I'm saying that older voters also cared about abortion. If they voted Democrat or not, I don't know.
They didn't vote Democrat, is what I'm saying, though.
It probably as an aggregate, yeah, as like a whole, but that doesn't have anything to do with my point. The Democrats still held back a massive red wave.
And I said that was because, and I already conceded to you that was because of young voters.
Yeah, and
What-
young
I'm
voters
talking
did it because of abortion.
I'm talking about young.
We agree
I'm
now.
talking
Thank
about-
you. We rounded
young
around the
voters, yes,
circle, and
yes,
we come to my side. Thank you.
Yes, but I said now I'm talking about older voters.
Okay, when did we make this random switch to older voters? This has never been the topic. If you want to switch
This
to older
ain't- this
voters,
ain't-
that's
this
fine.
ain't-
I don't know what this has to do with anything else.
Well, the same time that we moved from gun control to this, which has nothing to do with each other.
No, my point about gun control was that it seems like the general consensus of the nation of the United States is moving towards more gun control, and my evidence for that was our higher push for things like abortion rights and any
That
other,
has abortion.
like-
That has abortion. Abortion has nothing to do with gun control.
Okay, if you can't see the connection between voters of abortion and voters of gun control, I don't know what to fucking tell you, dude. Like, people who typically vote for abortion probably also support gun control. Agree or
No,
disagree?
people who support abortion rights vote for gun control. People
Yes.
who oppose abortion rights are doing against gun control.
Yes! Okay, we agree to that. Okay, perfect. So, if people who agree with abortion rights are typically voting for more gun control, then based off of the current election, would it be fair to say that the trend is going towards more gun control?
If young voters, when polled, they support gun control, then they support gun control.
Yeah, and there are more young voters voting than ever before now, based on the past.
Yeah,
midterms.
so you'd have to poll.
So that means there's more support for gun control than there has ever
You'd
been
have
in
to
the
poll
past.
young voters if they actually support gun control. So do you have a poll of young
Yes, I
voters?
can go poll of young voters that support gun control. I wonder what it'll
They
be.
didn't send it to me. You can put it in the Discord.
Head of National School Walkout Day, and, 2/3, 66% of young voters, based off this, whatever the fuck, Harvard.
And either way, this is also not talking about the legality of gun control. Because even if a gun control law passed from young voters supporting it, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay.
It has a higher likelihood of staying if the rest of the nation is more in favor of gun control. Yeah, that's typically how,
No,
like,
because
democracies
the
work.
courts could overrule this.
The courts, which would be picked by Democrats, would probably be more favorable towards gun control.
Courts are right now packed by Republicans.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. That's my point. Yeah, that's why you keep voting for Democrats. That's why, in record numbers, people went to vote in the midterms. It's to keep more Democrats in power, so that they have more opportunity.
But the Democrats
to
haven't
appoint
packed the
more
courts
judges.
yet.
Huh?
But they haven't packed the courts yet.
Yeah, but if you keep Democrats in power, they have a higher likelihood when those judges die and there's a Democrat in power, what's gonna be appointed. So if you keep
Yeah,
Democrats
but
in
that's
power,
if the Democrats stay in power for the presidency too.
yes, but that's evidenced by the massive turnout in the midterms.
The midterms aren't. I mean, things could happen between the midterms and the.
You're right, but based on the midterms, it suggests that people like the Democrats in record numbers.
No, it shows young voters specifically.
Yes, and that caused a historical turnout and a historical moment in politics where for the first time since Bush, a president actually held on to like more seats than anyone else before.
Yeah, I'm talking about the general though, not the midterms. The midterms happen. I'm saying the general, because the general could change. President. So if in the general Democrats lose, then they won't be able to appoint judge even if they won the midterms. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, but the midterms being held the way they did is a good indicator that the Democrats will win come the
I mean, not
re-election.
really. I mean, it's not.
How is it not?
Because the midterms don't decide the general. The general decides the general.
Oh my fucking god! Do you not understand like I don't, is inflection points, or like you can like use this to gauge future things? Like when Bill Clinton lost 54 seats in 1994, was he popular or unpopular? Like when George W. Bush lost 32 seats in 2006, was he a popular president or an unpopular president? When Barack Obama lost the House and the Senate in 2014, was he a popular president or an unpopular president? When Donald Trump, when Joe Biden only loses 10 seats, what does that mean?
I mean, Obama was popular in the beginning, became more popular, but even now, afterwards, in retrospect, has relatively moderate margins. Like, he's not too popular, but he's not too unpopular either. So he has relatively moderate margin.
I don't know what the hell that has to do with my question. What does it mean when Joe Biden only loses 10 seats in comparison to people who lose 40 seats and lose 60 seats and lose 50 seats? What does that show you?
That shows you Joe Biden in a unique one-off election had more or was less unpopular than other presidents.
Yes, okay. And so because of this unique and one-off, like, historical event, what can you predict for the future? Like, it seems like Joe Biden's in a pretty uniquely positive position, despite everything that's going on. Usually when things like this happen, when the economy's bad and shit's hitting the fan, usually whichever president is in power loses all power. Loses both the House and the Senate. As we saw with George Bush in 2006. But Joe Biden, like with everything going on, retained control of the Senate and historically didn't lose that many seats in the House.
I mean, losing the House just means you're not going to pass anything. How is he going to pass anything if he can't?
He has a better chance of passing anything than any other president before him.
But this doesn't actually mean he's going to pass anything.
Yes, but it's more evidence that you need to go out and vote. Because look, Joe Biden can look at this and go, look, young people, you went out and voted, and guess what? We historically succeeded, or like didn't do as bad in this midterms than ever before.
During his re-election campaign, but he became unpopular at the end of his presidency. So that shows his popularity grew and then it dipped. I'm saying that.
Yeah, and historically, Joe Biden's popularity right now didn't dip as far as anyone else did. So next time, and then in his next
we could say that
like
George Bush's, George Bush's was more popular.
Yeah, George Bush was more popular in 2002 because the Twin Towers got fucking struck down, and he declared a war on terror. That made him really popular. Yeah.
Yeah, so we could say that.
So what made Joe Biden? What made Joe Biden really popular in 2022?
So can I finish my point, and then you can ask the question? Sure. Okay, so in the same way, George Bush or whatever was popular, and so but then his popularity dipped at the end of his term. Joe Biden could be temporarily popular like George Bush was, but his popularity could dip at the end of his term in the same way.
Sure. I guess, but like, let's still kind of avoid. What was the point?
My point was to tell you that this doesn't mean the general. So I was drawing a comparison.
It can indicate you're like, but what you just brought up is like anything can happen. Yeah, anything can happen. Yeah, but when a historic moment like this happens after 2002, right? I don't think many people were thinking like, oh, George Bush can fuck this up. I think people were probably thinking like, oh, George Bush is going to keep this up. But what can George Bush is the economy crashing in 2006.
Okay, then we could say, I don't know, maybe there'll be something else that happens before 20.
Yeah, maybe something. But that something else is happening right now. There's a pandemic going on and historic inflation, but that didn't stop Joe Biden. Huh?
The pandemic is done. In America, at least.
Yeah, kind of, but it's still going on, and a lot of things were blamed on like the Democrats, like.
Well, the lockdowns were, but the pandemic itself.
Okay, so there's the lockdowns. There's like.
But the lockdowns are done nationally, so.
I know. Okay, but I'm just telling. All I'm saying is that a lot of historic shit happened, and through all of that historic shit, Joe Biden still retained popularity.
No, he retained slightly less unpopularity.
Based on every other metric, he's retained popularity.
No, slightly less unpopularity.
He
Popularity is the
he retained popularity better than anyone else before him.
Okay, popularity means the majority approval. He was unpopular to a lesser degree.
In historic fine, I'll even agree to that, but in historic fashion.
Okay, in historic fashion.
Yeah, which is really important for like going forward. Because now Joe Biden can look at this and go, wow, look, guys, our policies are so popular and we did so well. If you guys vote even harder next time, we can win in 2024, and we can bring you and we can take the house over.
So because we lost, but we lost in slightly, because we're losers in a slightly less big fashion, that we're still gonna win somehow in the future.
Yes, because it was a historic thing. We lost in slightly less fashion in a historic moment. Usually what happens in these midterms, as we can see with the rest of the data, usually what happens is that you lose by a lot. You lose like 40 plus seats. But Joe Biden didn't lose 40 plus seats. Joe Biden only lost 10. Which means that his policies are popular and he somehow got a record number of people to go out and vote. Usually there's a cratering that happens at this time, but it didn't happen. So this is called like a motivation boost, where you can use this and bounce off and do more next time, and hopefully bring out more voters so that you could flip the house.
I'm saying he can't pass anything into law if the Republicans can obstruct in the House.
You're right, they can obstruct, but then you use that as like a bouncing point. Be like, hey, the Republicans keep fucking with our shit. Vote us in. Come 2024 and the midterms soon after that.
That's if someone's a policy, and it depends on what kind of.
Sorry, you keep breaking it now.
So first of all, that's for people who already support Democrat policy. So that's one half of the electorate. And then it's always people if he pushes different Democratic policies that are more unpopular, maybe he does different undemocratic
policies. Now you're just getting into weird shit if he does different things. Based on his current policies, we see a trend towards historic turnout for Democrats. Correct?
No, this isn't historic turnout for Democrats.
Yes, it is! We just agreed that this was a historic midterms. But now you're not saying it's a historic midterms.
No, this was... Again, you keep saying turnout for Democrats and not turnout less for Republicans. You keep
it was a historic turnout for Democrats. I can go look it up if you need me to do it again.
You're saying it's, again, they lost. So I'm saying it's... They
lost less than anyone else before. That's a sign of a historic turnout for Democrats.
How do we know it's not just
because,
what do you call it?
Because young people never voted before and now they are voting. That's historic. That's a historic turnout.
Yeah, that I'm saying, but the turnout that it's blocking, or the turnout as a wave, it's supporting Democrats, but I'm saying the net effect of the turnout is only blocking Republicans slightly, because it's still not...
Which is historically significant, because it never happens this way.
Like, if you mean it never happens, at least to this level, I mean, I've never seen an example of a president who lost but won by this margin. I have seen presidents who have won by bigger margins, like Bush, but if you're talking about Democrats...
Bush won in a bigger margin after a historic thing happened.
Then, so what's this historic thing that's happening?
What's historic right now is that there's a pandemic fucking our economy, which usually means that whoever's in power gets less votes, and Roe v. Wade happened, and... Sorry, I'm burping. Roe v. Wade happened, and then some like weed stuff, and then student loan forgiveness. Those were the historic things that happened.
But the pandemic that favored Republicans, the majority of the population opposes lockdowns now.
Yes, and yet Democrats still didn't lose that bad.
So
why? Because of Roe v. Wade and weed and student loan forgiveness.
Then doesn't that just prove that if abortion in the future is more codified as protected in Democrat states, but codified as banned in Republican states, and then purple states is pro-choice, but with more regulations, so it's like more like a moderate position, then that means at a federal level, it's not going to be the deciding factor as much, because it's going to be codified on the state level.
But it seems like voters want it codified on a federal level.
Well, young voters do, or...
and they historically turned out and caused the halting of a red wave. That's a good sign that you should keep going with codifying Roe v. Wade on a federal level.
But the only way you can do that is for a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, and you can get that constitutional amendment by keeping the House into the Democrats, and we showed historically that you can do that by voting more. So we got to keep this up, and then you can have more Democrats in the House, and you could pass it that way. And then if you keep Democrats in power, they can elect more Democratic favorable Supreme Court judges, and then they can codify Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, but that's a court issue. That's not a that issue.
Huh?
That's a court. It's not a legislative issue. I mean,
a court issue gets solved by Democrats staying in power.
No, the way you codify Roe is because Roe v. Wade is overturned is by passing an amendment which codifies Roe v. Wade into law. But the way they get that is they have to get a constitutional amendment. The only way they can get a constitutional amendment is if they have six out of 10 or whatever seats in the Senate and the overwhelming majority of the House and state legislators.
Yeah, and all that happens with more voting for Democrats, which was historically present in the recent midterms.
No, but it's basically impossible to get a constitutional amendment. It's not gonna. I guarantee you that's not.
Okay, now we're into fairyland. If you're just saying it's impossible, it's the United States of America. If you vote hard enough, it's gonna happen. That's Joe Biden's whole platform right now. Is vote harder, and we'll get Democrats in power, and we'll get you what you need.
The only way you can have that Roe v. Wade codified in federal law as a constitutional amendment is if Democrats control the majority of state legislators. Republicans control the overwhelming majority of state legislators.
Yeah, and what caused that? In part, it was because Donald Trump got elected.
No, Republicans have always controlled the overwhelming majority of state legislators.
And why is that? Because a lot of Republicans get elected and were able to change.
No, it was because Donald Trump. No, you said it was because Donald Trump was elected.
That's the most recent example. Donald Trump got to appoint 3 Supreme Court judges. 3. That's a historical number.
State legislators.
State legislators are by governors, and that could also be changed by voting more Democrat. But federal judges, like the judge that federal judges, like the one that shot down the student loan forgiveness, was appointed by Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump doesn't get elected, or if Republicans don't get elected, that doesn't happen.
No, but I'm saying if a state legislator wants to pass constitutional amendment to codify Roe v. Wade, then they have to have a majority Democrat state legislator and a majority Democrat governor, but that doesn't happen in the overwhelming majority of states.
And,
so what you're saying is,
how would it happen more? By encouraging young voters to vote, and the reason why we have evidence for that is because of how the midterms just went.
Yeah.
Young voters came out to vote, and in historic fashion, the red wave was stopped.
Yeah, again, so Republicans control I don't know how many, they control the majority of state legislators, the overwhelming majority of the lawmakers. So if you're saying more voters, you're right, but that would have to require every state. But in red states, they're still not going to become Democratic, even if there's more young voters, because they are too red to flip or whatever.
That's not true. We've seen that in Texas, where Texas slowly becomes more and more purple every single year.
No, Texas isn't becoming a purple state.
Yes, wait, Texas isn't becoming a purple state? It most certainly is.
No, it's not.
Recently, it had a historic fuck up,
no,
Beto O'Rourke got screwed up, got fucked up, but Texas is definitely going towards more of a purple state. What are you talking about?
Then Beto would have had higher margins.
In this past election, yeah, he historically got fucked up because he wasn't popular. But overall, over the past many years, we've seen Beto O'Rourke was almost winning a couple years ago.
Then that just shows that Democrats had a chance and now they doesn't.
Yeah, and they had that chance before, and they missed on it, but now they have even more chances than ever before because more and more Democrats keep getting elected because more and more young people come out to vote.
No, it's at the federal level, specifically, federal level, yes, but I'm not saying the state level.
The state level, more and more Democrats keep getting more popular, around the nation.
Then you'd see state legislatures flipping Democrat, but that's not happening.
Well, it is. I mean, I think Nevada just flipped to Democrat, or at least stayed Democrat.
That's at the federal level. No.
That was Carrie Lake. No, that was for governor.
No, that's Arizona.
Sorry, Arizona then, yeah.
You don't even know what you're talking about. Arizona.
Okay. Sorry, I messed up between Nevada and Arizona, the two states that are right beside each other. So Arizona had Carrie Lake lose the governor election, So that's a governor. That's a state issue thing.
We haven't gotten to the point. But listen, it's been nice talking to you. I might call in later. We've been talking for like 2 hours, and I don't know what your point is. If your point is that Democrats are more popular in the midterms, yeah. If your point is that means Democrats are going to win in specifically the uh, state legislatures race, then no, because the overwhelming majority of state legislators are Republican, and this flip it is going to be basically impossible unless you flip like half the state legislators in the country. And that was a governor, not a state legislator. And specifically, this governor was in a already existing purple state of Arizona. So, on every single level, you got the details of the case wrong, at least in Arizona, because it's already a purple state. Now,
Yeah, but
I don't know what your point.
It's a purple state now. Like, it's historically, like, I don't know what the, like, for the longest time, Alaska wasn't a purple state, and now it is.
What?
Alaska, like up until up until recently, it's been a heavy Republican state.
It still is.
No, it's purple now because what's her nuts lost.
No, Alaska has a Republican senator.
But Alaska also just lost. Who was the governor? Whatever the fuck her name is.
I mean, I don't know what specifically you're talking about. So, I don't know what race you're talking about. So I don't know.
It was the.
But tell me what your summary is. Is your summary Democrats are more popular with younger voters? Okay. Is there any other point you have?
That's pretty much the point. Yeah, I guess.
Then, if that's the case, then I already believe that. What has to do with gun culture specifically, or banning guns?
It has to do with gun culture because young people are heavily in favor of gun control, and if they're voting more, that means that they have a higher likelihood of passing gun control.
I don't think they support banning guns.
They don't support banning guns. They support more gun control. That's what I just said.
Well, if you're talking about okay, so I thought earlier we were talking about things like voluntary but mandatory buybacks and stuff like that, and completely banning firearms or banning handguns.
Yeah, those were like possible. Yeah, when we were talking about that stuff, that was like possible avenue. That was possible avenues for what you could do for like more gun control. And then we started talking about like how could that happen?
If you're talking about like banning handguns, you're talking about banning guns at that point.
Yes, but that's a possibility that you could do. That's what happened in Canada. I'm not saying it has to happen in the United States. All I'm saying is that in the United States, there is a possibility that that could happen in the future because as it turns out right now, there seems to be a larger push towards gun control than ever before. It seems like the United States is moving more towards gun control than away from gun control.
I mean, again, I don't know what specific poll you're citing or even if it's a priority, but maybe...
I've gave you all of my polls that I've been citing that like abortion is like a big issue of young voters and gun stuff is also.
Because we haven't really gotten to an issue other than we agree young voters support Democrats, which I already believed, and we don't seem to have a coherent point other than a point where we already agree on. So, okay, young voters support Democrats. Cool, man. Cool story. So, I'm getting tired, and this conversation seems to be pretty unproductive, so I might call in later, I might call in tomorrow, but in the meanwhile, you seem to have been going for over 6 hours, and if you're tired, I don't know, but I'm tired, so bye. Maybe I'll talk to you later, maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow, but this conversation isn't getting anywhere that we haven't touched on previously, so have a good day, and bye.
Okay, take care. What the fuck just happened? Who was that? Who lost? What the fuck was her name? Who the fuck recently lost? What the hell was her name? Sarah Palin. That's right. She was the governor of Alaska until like recently. Where the fuck was it? God damn it. Oh, it was the gubernatorial election, wasn't it? No? What the fuck? Oh, was it that she lost the primary? Is that what happened? That's why I can't find it. What the fuck happened? Sarah. Oh, there it is. Yeah, right there. It was a House election. Sarah Palin got kicked out of Alaska's. Yeah. Sarah Palin lost her Republican seat to a Democrat, Mary Peltola or whatever. That's why Alaska's a purple state now. Because the House seat in Alaska went to a Democrat. Holy fucking smokes, dude. I'm gonna go. I've been streaming for 9 hours. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, I'm outie here. I gotta eat and stuff. I appreciate anyone tuning in. All this stuff's gonna get posted online. Hopefully, it was a good eventful day. That was great. Maybe what I will do. Part of me wonders if I should. I'll see how it goes after this week. But part of me wonders if I should just stream on weekends, and then it's easier for me to set the stuff up, and then I can just have weekends for like all this stuff, and then I could do whatever I want on weekdays. But at the same, actually no, I could. Maybe I could just set up any of these debates for the weekends, and I just don't do any of them during the week. That's probably actually better. Anyways, I love you, appreciate you. See you later.